been reflecting on adversity and thinking of creatures like, actually, I might as well share my screen and show you some pictures. Oh, that's not. The share screen button is right next to the end meeting button. That was close. Yeah, so, here we have Tiktaalik. It's a body of a fish with head like a crocodile, with the jaw that opens here. And it has stronger fins here. It's got a different bone structure in here. And there's a neck and ribs. And, it lived in mangroves. How, and this is a interesting thing here. A fish has, whoops, come back here. Bigger for you. There we are. A fish has no neck. It has a round head and has eyes on the side, like we explored last week. And you can still see these bones in the fins. But by the time, then you look at a tetrapod, a land, four-limbed creature, and it has a neck, has a rib cage, has a long tail, and has a pelvis. But before we got to, going onto land properly, we went to this creature, Tiktaalik, about 375 million years ago. And it has ribs, has lungs, as well as gills, and it has this bone structure inside its feet, where it's got the beginnings of the same structure that we have, that you can see in this one down here. It has the, collection of bones for the hand, 2 bones in the forearm, and then a long bone here, and then a shoulder girdle. And same thing on the back leg. And it also had a flat head, and eyes moved around to the top of its body. I might mute you all because I'm getting a bit of feedback from some of you. You can press your space bar if you want to talk. No, in fact, I'm going to have to stop the share to do that. Hang on a second. I'll just stop the share and then that's better. And now I'll come back to here. There we are. Yeah, how did we get from here to here? It took a hell of a long time. And you think of, it's probably through accident. It's probably, someone gets washed up, they can tell there's really delicious food up in the mangroves, and, they're looking for it and they get stuck there. As the tide's coming out, and they're scrabbling around, and what use are fins, for moving around on mud, but maybe one of them got injured in the shoulder or something, and they got scar tissue and got thicker, or it created a little nodule on its shoulder that could sort of work into the ground and move itself forward. I don't know how it happens, but you think over millions of years there must have been so much frustration. So many fish stuck out on a mud flat in the moonlight, maybe feeling beatific, but then gets snatched up by some horrible creature, or, catches some sort of virus or disease. But still we persist. We keep on going. And it's interesting, there's a number of things. It has this tail. So it's obviously going to be moving its whole body that's going to enable it to move. And we'll explore that today, how that could happen. How could we actually develop strength in the limb? And in a way, you look at a man like this man, Greg. Whoop. Whoops. To be able to move like that, this strength in his arms and his legs. It's, most of us don't have that capacity. Actually, I'll show you another. This is him running. You can see he's a speedster. Hang on. There we are. He can just push someone off behind him like that while he's still running and still pay attention to where the sideline is. Tremendously skilled, and was the captain of the Australian team for a while, and here's another perspective from the side, and this is really interesting. Slowed down. Wouldn't you love to do that? Just sort of slide on your belly and then just go into that creeping action like that. Look at the rotation that's there through his spine, how he just begins this rotation. And how his head still keeps going where it's going. But the thing with creeping that's different, sorry, I'm shouting here, shouting in your ear. The thing that's different with creeping to crawling, say, as the later quadrupeds did, is it's, one side gets shorter, one side gets longer. And that's this lizard thing. And it's a funny thing with adversity. And all the stuff in the media that's going down at the moment, and blaming people and causing all these problems. It's based on ignorance a lot of the time and short-term solutions. Actually, you look at this again. There's something about the character of. Where are we? Here. It sort of looks like a lizard, doesn't it? The way he moves, he really characterizes. There's something that's so lizard-like about the movement, and that's what makes it so compelling. It's like a transformative movement, and he's a First Nations Australian, and the First Nations people here are.
David, I don't think you're sharing.
Oh, thanks. How did that happen? Thanks, Went. See, he's got a quality. It's got a transformative quality to it, doesn't it? There's something of the lizard in it. Well, in First Nations people in Australia, of which he's one from, they're really connected. I'll stop sharing now. Really connected to country, as they say, and they know. It's in their interest to know everything about what's going on in the country, and they also have a sense, an idea that there are these ancestral beings that the world is a dream, this thing called the dream time, but and we're taught at school when we're taught about it as if it was a long time ago, but actually it's now. It's just the world is a dream. And there are these ancestral beings that often were lizards or different creatures who had a role in creating the earth. And so a lot of their spiritual practice is honouring those creatures, and they have to understand them. And so there are a lot of the dance. You see a lot of Aboriginal dance. It's just it's like that. The way he does that celebratory lizard move after scoring a try, it's where they're imitating, they become an animal. It's really fantastic, but it's an interesting thing because to do that you have to understand the animal. You have to empathize with it, and man, is that something we need or what as a species at the moment? or I think we're in trouble. So I thought we might, try to connect with that through time a little bit with Tiktaalik. It'll lead us toward crawling because that's the thing with developmental movements that we do so much of in Feldenkrais, that they're all really useful. It's that that the end goal of coming up to stand is great, but every stage along the way teaches us something really useful. And if you go back and you explore those stages, there's always something to gain. You always learn something or are able to refine the quality. And I've had numerous experiences of people who haven't been interested in sport, and then you find out they didn't crawl when they were young, or there was some other interruption to their ability to explore the entire developmental sequence, and then when we go back and we start exploring that component, then they found that they're suddenly really good at sport. It's really quite interesting. And you'll feel it today after walking around after today. Even though we're only just we're going to work mostly with the upper limb. You'll see how it affects your ability to walk afterwards. Yeah. So now everyone is muted. So lie down on your back on the floor. And notice the process of how you settle. Consider your heartbeat. And the way you're moving as you're breathing. And the feeling inside you. What do other creatures feel? You may have a dog or a pet or some other companion in your life who you know. You just consider the feeling they have within themselves when they're lying alone on the floor. And then could you place your hands, palms down, underneath each side of your pelvis? So these could be like flippers. Sense your elbows out to the side and maybe try lifting them up a little bit. Imagine you're a fish. Make it a really small movement. If it's hard to lift your elbows, just, like go to lift and don't struggle with it at all. Just only as far as it's an easy movement. And imagine you were a fish 400 million years ago. Lying in beautiful nutrient-rich mud in a mangrove somewhere. And idly lifting your fins. Maybe there's somewhere you've been trying to get to. You know, something tells you that just above you there, further up, there's something really delicious that you'd love to get to, but you haven't been able to make it. And now you're just tired, resting here. Or maybe push down the right fin into the ground a little bit and then let it relax. And notice as you push that right fin down into the ground a little bit, there where your elbow is, how it moves your rib cage over a little bit. Feel the way your rib cage can slide over to the side within your suit of skin. And you know how it actually moves within the shoulder girdle too. You know, can you feel the back of your rib cage sliding on the shoulder blade there? I saw a marine biologist last night speaking on a documentary and studying an area for 20 years, and some of the fish he's known for 10 years, and it says they all have characters. You know, some of them, they're really different, and they relate to him in different ways. And I think if you're a fish 400 million years ago lying in a mud flat, just pressing your fin down into the ground, you know, what would you be feeling? Would you feel it right through to your tail? Maybe have your feet, would think, you know, of your tail going, you know, your legs being a tail, your feet like the fins at the end of the tail. And consider as you press down on that right flipper, how it moves the whole body. You know, what's the influence right down through your tail? Well, leave that, you know, keep your knees or legs together-ish, you know, comfortably, but just move your knees a little bit side to side, as if you're actually bending your tail. And notice when you bend your tail, how that makes your pelvis shift. Maybe you can feel that on your shoulder girdle too. And you bend your knees a little bit from side to side and feel how that makes the whole of your skeleton slide within the suit of skin. And then leave that. Stay there with your hands under your pelvis. Feel your body now from, you know, your head with the mouth right up at the top of your head, eyes on the top of your head, and then long fish body with the fins on either side and the tail down through your legs to your feet. And then once again press down on the right flipper and move your rib cage across and then back. And just sense, can you feel that right through your body? Maybe you could begin to use your left flipper, press down on the left side, and move the rib cage over to the right. You know, what's the feeling on this side? Maybe go side to side, press down on one fin and then on the other and feel how your rib cage moves from side to side. But it's interesting, your pelvis and your legs, or your tail and your head, they stay where they are, but the rib cage is moving side to side, and you can feel your neck moving. Or try moving your knees side to side at the same time. No, which is the best way to do it? You know, do you move your knees to the side that your rib cage is going? Try that. Try moving your knees to the same side as your rib cage. Does that feel very fishy? Try going now with your knees to the opposite side. See if that feels more fish-like, more wave-like. Can you do it slowly? Side to side, pushing on the fin, and then having your tail bend in the opposite direction to the way your rib cage is going. And you know, feel the shape of the back of your body sliding around in this mud. Beautiful mud. Get a sense of the back of your rib cage and the lower back and your tail, right down to the flippers at the end of your tail, the roundness of your body in the mud, glorious warm mud. And then leave that now. Let your hands out and just rest there. And have your hands by your side and just roll them out and roll them in. And you can feel the fingers and the bones of the forearm. Well, that, moves differently, doesn't it? The hand and the forearm, they move slightly differently to the upper arm, which only has one bone. And then when it gets to the shoulder, it's rolling, it's a round thing, the shoulder there, isn't it? The actual joint capsule. And then it has the shoulder blade and the collarbone. Well, leave your hands palms down by your side. And just raise your right shoulder. Raise it up and down. Feel the way your shoulder blade slides over the back of your body. Get a sense of the roundness of your rib cage. And feel, you lift it up and then you let it all the way back down. Give yourself time to relax. And so you can feel, as you lift the shoulder, the bone at the elbow. Because there's the shoulder girdle, the upper arm, which is a single bone that comes down to two bones at the forearm. It took us a long time, millions of years, to develop the bone right through to the end of the flipper. And then to develop these digits that eventually became, fingers or claws when we became lizards. Feel that now. The process of sensing the elbow. Maybe some fish 400 million years ago could feel that, could feel there's a joint there. Moved its body in a way that it would bend the flipper, bend the fin, and feel that bone, and somehow doing that, got more aware of it, so it began to actually move with it. Try actually, as you lift the shoulder, just pressing the elbow into the ground. You lift the shoulder, then press the elbow a little bit into the ground. You can move your rib cage. That early, before it became that amphibian Tiktaalik that had quite developed bones in its front fins, there would have been a time where that was growing, where maybe the first bone, you could feel that, but wasn't quite able to feel the two lower bones yet. Maybe it was pushing on that bone on its elbow and feeling how it could push the shoulder side, to push its torso side to the side with that. Leave that for a moment, just rest and notice how that feels on that side. The difference between the left and right sides now. Lift your right shoulder once again. Notice the feeling you now have of the shoulder girdle and the upper arm bone. Maybe you can feel the two lower bones now in the forearm. But leave that, because it did take a long time to develop. Just sense how your arm feels lying there. And now raise your left shoulder up and down. How is it on this side? When they were fish, before they really developed this flat body, if they were lying on the side there, they'd be moving the top fin, but they'd be moving the bottom fin, and that would be in the mud. What would that feel like? But notice now, as you're lifting the shoulder, how the shoulder girdle slides over the rib cage. Maybe you could feel how the whole of your rib cage is being influenced by this movement. Maybe you could feel your elbow on the left. And, notice your neck. Because this is exerting a small movement, isn't it, on the rib cage, which is twisting the neck. And, well, Tiktaalik's neck was not like ours. It, could move side to side a bit, and it could lift its head up. but certainly not like ours. But it's interesting to feel just that movement of your shoulder in the sense of the top of your neck, right where it joins onto the skull. Because that's where the neck developed. From that point where the skull begins to separate and it begins to be able to move. So you now keep your shoulder up and now press on that left elbow. Well, you don't have to keep the shoulder up actually, just press on that left elbow and feel the way it moves your rib cage, and then you know how it's moving your neck, and the neck right up at the top where it joins your skull. Feel how your rib cage slides within your suit of skin. And try, maybe go side to side. Press one elbow and then the other. You've got the feeling of the beginnings of your neck. Right at the top, this looseness there. And if you can tune into it and sense right around the top of the neck and the base of your skull, and maybe it feels just right, relaxing there, so there's space in the top of your neck and the base of your skull. It's behind your nose, beneath your ears, round the back of your head. And there's that sense, well, actually leave that for a second, just rest there. The sense of the forearm, the two bones, they grew at some stage. Over a long period of time, they gradually got used more or something, and they developed into this larger structure with this hand on the end. Push once again side to side from your elbows, and sense now in the forearms, down to your hands, right to the end of the fins. Can you notice a difference on the inside and the outside of your hand? Because there are two bones in the forearms. And there's a difference between the thumb and the little finger. Feel the spread, the width of your hand. Does that give you a different sense? Begin now to press your hand into the floor. Hand and forearm and elbow. Does that give you a different set of directions that you can push? And what if you begin to move your tail, move your knees a little bit side to side in a way that seems easy, makes it seem like a wave-like movement that a fish would do, fish with a long body and a tail. And leave that, rest. And roll over onto your stomach. Roll over onto your stomach. And have your head over to the left. Or you can have it to whichever side feels comfortable. But if you can, oh no, actually have it to the right. Have your head to the right. And place your hands underneath your body, underneath your pelvis or legs. And just feel how it is here. Roll yourself a little bit. Roll your pelvis a little bit side to side. As if you were Tiktaalik lying in the mud on a glorious moonlit evening. On a still night. Just get a sense of maybe lift your feet a little bit into the air. Just bend your legs at the knee, just a little bit. Move your feet side to side so you have a sense of your tail. That when the water rises, it enables you to swim so effortlessly. Or maybe imagine that now. The tide comes up, it lifts you off the mud. So you're free in the water now, and just move your feet side to side. And there's a bit of a rotation when you do that. You can let your toes go behind you like they're a fin. Moving your tail side to side, feeling the bend in the knees, and how that translates through to your pelvis and your rib cage. The whole of your body can roll here, and maybe you can feel that on your flippers on the side here with your arms and elbows. Maybe lift your head up, and you could turn your head from side to side as you're doing this movement with your tail, and see if you can find a way of making sense of that. Moving your feet side to your tail side to side. So you're sensing that bend in the legs. How does your body move in a way that makes it wave-like and smooth? We'll go slowly, of course. And, when your feet go to one side, your pelvis rolls, doesn't it? Leave that for a moment, rest. And press your right flipper into the floor. You feel that upper arm bone. Maybe you could press your elbow into the floor, into the mud. Let's come back to the tide being out, and you're just resting in the mud here. Moving, pressing your rib cage over to one side. Maybe do both sides. Press the left now, and then the right. Just move side to side. Move your rib cage side to side by pressing on the elbow and sensing the movement through shoulder, rib cage and right through your pelvis, down your tail. Rest for a moment. And lift your shoulders up. Just lift your shoulders up and down. And sense as you're doing that, how you're lifting the upper arm bones and lifting, how that enables you to feel the forearms. And in fact, lift your head up and turn your head side to side as you move your fins. Feel the roundness of your body. And then leave that. And could you bend your knees a little bit side to side? Actually lift your feet off the floor a bit. Bend your knees a little bit, like maybe you could lift your head. You're in the mud here and you want to move somewhere. Bend your knees as if you're bending your tail, and could you find a way of pushing yourself along the mud? Not so easy when it's slippery and probably the shoreline is sloping down away from where you want to get to. Anyway, just leave that and roll onto your back. So many times when we're trying to evolve something new, it never gets anywhere. We try and just nothing seems to happen. But then you lie on your back. And there's that sense of space inside you. Maybe a cool breeze. And then you have an idea. You feel your flippers down by your sides, palms down. And you sort of think, move your hands side to side like you're drawing them along the floor. That point in our evolution where the beginnings of the wrist. What did that feel like? What was that like for those fish when they could feel there was a bit of structure down there that they could actually move it? And maybe try walking your hands out. Press the fingers down, move the heels of the hand over and lift the arm up, and then press the heels down, move the end of the flipper out. Just move, walk your arms out to the side and back a few times and get a sense, how that would be, to go from having a fin that pushes water to suddenly realizing you could push it on the ground and it has some structure. That would have been quite an experience. Sense that now, how all the bones in your arm move. Pressing down, you're raising the heel of the hand, you're raising the forearms. And how does that influence your shoulder? Well, leave your hands out at about, not quite 45 degrees, palms down. And just notice what you feel about your arms now. And in fact, press down on your right hand and forearm. You know, you could lift your right shoulder a little bit, a few times, feel that, and just notice what you can do with fingers when you have bone structure in your flipper. You know, you can push, you can pull. And, you know, notice the direction that it's moving you. Try that with the left. Push on the hand and the forearm so you feel the bone structure in your fin interacting with that lovely mud, enabling you to roll your body. Feel your body right down to your tail, down there near your feet, in the mud. And go side to side now, one side to the other. And feel how it rolls your body. You know, right down through your back, right down to your tail. Can you have this sense that your whole body is rolling now? Press, you know, in a way that you can. You could press down on that arm and, you know, lift the whole side, lift the pelvis off, right down to your tail. Lift that leg off. And in fact, combine that flipper movement, pressing into the ground, with the movement of the tail. So bend your knees. Feel how you can move the whole spine. And then leave that. Walk your hands out a little bit further, maybe above 45 degrees. And do the same thing. And notice when you have your palms out further, it pushes you in a different direction. Go slowly here. Really listen for how you need to organize your fin to be able to press into the ground. So try lifting the thumbs and first fingers so you just have the heel of the hands, and press that into the floor on each side. Feel the way that rolls you and the number of directions that you can roll. You know, whether you could push yourself up or down. And then roll your arm so it goes in the other direction, so you have the thumb and first finger on the floor and the little fingers in the air, and try, you know, what you can press down into the floor, where you can move now. And then try the whole hand again in this position. And notice, you know, the range of places with the whole hand, the whole flipper, that you can push and pull yourself. You know, particularly if you allow your torso to move. You know, allow your rib cage to move. Let your tail bend. Let your knees bend a little bit. And, you know, as you're pressing down or exerting force with your flippers, let the whole of your body, the whole trunk and tail move. Leave that. Rest there. How does that feel? What did prototype Tiktaaliks feel when they discovered something new, some new way of moving? What was their sense of being? Does it feel the same as what we feel, that tingling sensation inside? Sense of space. Presence of their existence. Well, roll once again over onto your stomach. And have your hands by your side, palm down. And feel how it is here. You know, quite possibly with your palms down, your shoulders are a little bit in the air, the arms are raised. Well, try pressing down on your hands, one after the other, and feel how that can roll your body. You can have your head wherever it's comfortable, on your forehead or to one side. Now, walk your hands out here. Walk your hands out and actually look at it as, look at your hand and arm, look at the way it's moving. You know, you press the fingers into the floor, the heel lifts, that lifts the forearm, the two bones in the forearm, and the upper bone, the upper arm bone. And your shoulders are moving. Just get a sense, you know, when you begin to lift, how they rotate a little bit. You know, how your elbows move. Well, stay with your hands at about 45 degrees out to the side. You can't really get your elbows down here. Or even if you could, it's not that functional, is it? It's easier if your elbows are lifted slightly. You know, so your elbows are slightly in the air, and now press down on one flipper and then the other, and feel how that rolls you. And you know, it's the inside and the outside of the flipper. You know, just lift the heel of the hand off the floor, so you've just got the thumb and the first two fingers at the front of the hand, and just get a sense of how, you know, how many directions you can push or pull in. You know, it's restricted, isn't it? And even if you have the heel down, which is where you find the power, lift the thumb and first fingers into the air. You've got power here, but not the same range or control of where you can exert that power. When you put the hands down, you can differentiate where the force goes. So have the whole hands down and feel how you move your elbow. You know, your elbow's in the air, your shoulder girdle moves, and you can roll yourself a little bit. You could lift your feet if you like, and, you know, move your tail as well. In fact, lift your head and, you know, feel how you can push on your flippers here and side to side and undulate. You know, feel the way your body moves. To move yourself forward, you really have to, you know, without legs, you need to bend the tail, you know, bend your knees, and there's to push that into the ground. Combining that with the hands, but you know, it's with the hands out at 45 degrees, that's not quite right, is it? Rest here. Just rest. Notice how it feels. Haven't quite learned to get where we're going yet. But it feels pretty good, doesn't it? Wherever you are. Well, have your hands back down, palm down again, and go back to walking them. And actually notice walking them up and down. Do you have a different sense of the arms and shoulders now? You know, are you automatically doing something with your elbows, lifting them up? You know, have them at shoulder height. Have your arms at shoulder height. Feel the hands down on the floor and push and pull here. Once again, consider how you use your elbows and your shoulders in order to be able to roll yourself. You could lift your feet and move your feet side to side. You could lift your head too. And just get a sense of how being able to exert force through your skeleton in your flippers gives you this strength. You know, but big flippers like this, long flippers, they're better in water. They're like a whale. Those big flippers at the side of their body look so cumbersome. You know, when they're, but actually give them so much power and control in the water. So let your head back down again and continue. We'll just rest there. Actually, could you walk your hands up in a way that you bend the elbows so your upper arms stay at shoulder height, but the forearms start to walk up in the direction of your head? Just move your forearms here. You know, it's a little bit of an awkward movement. You have to lift your shoulder a little bit in order to bend the arm like that. But it really enables you to feel the two bones in the forearm. If you keep your hands up, pointing in the direction of your head, upper arms at shoulder height, out to the side, and just moving the heels of the hands side to side, pressing into the floor and feeling the bones in the forearm and the hand on each side. You know, and push and pull here. You could lift your head if you like, turn your head side to side. And if you push on the hand and forearm and elbow here, how does that enable you to turn or move? Well, move your hands, walk the hands down so they're actually underneath the shoulder now. Have your hands under your shoulder. And, you know, hands are on the floor. Move your elbows out to the side like they're fins and feel the shoulder girdle. You know, how can you lift your head and your chest a little bit and then come down and just play with how you have your hands organized, where they're pointed, and you know which parts, where you press, where the elbows, you know, move. You know, how can you organize your hands so that you could press down and you could lift yourself up? You know, you could have that sense of control and force that your hand and your arm felt stable. You could lift yourself up and down here. You know, or move yourself side to side. How can you organize your hands so that you could move yourself side to side, so that your hands felt stable? You know, there must have been that time when the bones, they're a bit clunky at first. They haven't quite worked out how to use them, but they're starting to grow and they're getting that sense of moving the flipper in different directions. Now, could you turn your hands down? Have your hands pointing down, because that's more like a tiktaalik. The flippers go out to the side. And they had much shorter arms, closer to their body, like, if you have it down at about the bottom of your rib cage with the fingers pointing out to the sides. And now press down here, roll yourself here. You could lift your head here and your chest. And of course, Tiktaalik couldn't lift itself too high, didn't have rear legs, and it still had a fish tail. It didn't have, the long tail and a pelvis that enables it to lift up, like the creature we'll look at next week. But nevertheless, if you move your tail side to side and press down on your hands, maybe you can push yourself through the mudflats and actually lift yourself up onto the land. Or lift yourself up onto some tree or something where there's something that you could eat. So feel, once again, how you can organize your hands and your skeleton, shoulders, so that you can move. Lift yourself up. And move side to side. So the sense of the bones and the flippers and the hands are an extension of the whole torso. Maybe just roll yourself side to side on your belly. You bend your knees so you feel your tail moving. You could even bend your knees side to side. Or just make it a gentle side to side. And in fact, just leave that and roll onto your back. Flushed with the success of achieving something your species has been working millions of years to achieve. And move yourself up onto the land. Yeah, notice the way you feel now. The feeling within you. Just another creature on an evolutionary spiral. Will people in the future think of those incredibly backward creatures of 2020 and wonder if they had feelings? When you're ready, open your eyes. Slowly roll over onto your side and come up to your hands and knees and then stand. Notice what you feel. Having a good sense of the skeleton of your upper limbs, how that fits into the rest of your body, and a neck, the base of your skull and the top of the neck, freedom there. And then try walking now and notice how that is.